It's 2020, a painful year for all of us. Oakland Athletic fans are about to experience the cherry on top of this miserable year. They've watched their team actually win a playoff series versus the Chicago White Sox in the wild card round. Even in this weird 2020 postseason with cardboard cutout fans, that is a big step forward for the Athletics franchise. It's Game 4 of the American League Division Series. The Houston Astros, under their first-year manager Dusty Baker, lead the Oakland Athletics 2-1. The A's need this game to force a winner-take-all Game 5, and they have an early lead, 3-2 in the bottom of the fourth inning. A's starter Frankie Montas faces Carlos Correa with 2 runners on. Montas leaves an absolute cookie out over the plate, and Correa absolutely mashes the ball to left field, a no-doubt home run to put Houston up 5-3. Also, can we take a moment to remember how weird 2020 was? Look at the fake fans in the outfield. The Astros take the lead for good at this moment, and ultimately win Game 4 11-6 to take the series 3-1. A promising season for the Oakland Athletics once again ends in the ALDS, and looking back, the window for contention was closing rapidly for the franchise. So let's take a look at that 2020 squad. In the strangest year and strangest season of baseball in recent memory, the Oakland Athletics won the American League West with a record of 36-24. The team had a plus 42 run differential in 60 games, which was on pace for a plus 113 differential for a full 162 game season. I know it's not a given that they would have kept it up, but this team was legit. Look over the roster and you'll see a number of impact players. Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, and Jesus Luzardo were progressing as above-average major leaguers, and established players like Marcus Semien, Mark Canha, Ramon Laureano, and Robbie Grossman filled out a roster that had few holes. Not to mention that the 2020 A's had Liam Hendriks closing out games, racking up an absurd 1.4 wins above replacement in 60 games as a reliever. Chris Bassitt was pitching like a true ace that season, 83% better than the average pitcher. It would be a grievous error not to mention that Oakland was managed by Bob Melvin, the 2007 NL and 2012 and 2018 AL Manager of the Year. The Oakland front office, led by Executive Vice President Billy Beane of Moneyball fame, had created a World Series contender with a payroll that ranked 21st out of 30 teams. Unfortunately for A's fans, a pitching staff that had excelled all season simply did not show up for that playoff series against the Astros. Oakland starters gave up 16 earned runs in 16 1/3 innings pitched. For the series, Oakland pitchers put up a 7.46 ERA. Pretty much any team is going to lose a series with those pitching stats. It was unrealistic to expect the low payroll A's to keep this team together. In 2023, the combined salaries of the top 14 performers on the 2020 Oakland roster was more than $127 million. The payroll for the entire Athletics team in 2020 was $94 million. Roster churn was inevitable, but to devolve into one of the worst teams in recent memory? Just how did we get here? Obviously, the tumult of the pending relocation of the franchise and the apparent aim of ownership to divest in the major league product is an enormous factor in the downward spiral of the Athletics franchise. But the depths of the A's nadir cannot be explained by ownership malfeasance alone. Yes, the club cut payroll dramatically, but how have baseball operations fared during this period? While not apples to apples, we know that major league franchises can achieve success on low payrolls. So let's dig into the last few years of trades, signings, and other transactions by the Oakland front office to gain some understanding of the current state of the roster. Liam Hendriks and Marcus Semien were clearly the biggest pieces of the 2020 team to hit free agency. For a club operating on a low budget, it makes sense to let Hendriks walk. Not many expected the A's to sign a closer to a long-term contract. Semien, after a down season of only 60 games, was much more re-signable. The A's chose not to give him a qualifying offer of $18.9 million, which would have secured an additional year of Semien on the team, or a draft pick if he declined the offer and signed elsewhere. Instead, Oakland reportedly offered Semien a strange one-year deal worth $12.5 million that would have paid the infielder $2.5 million in 2021 and $1 million for the following 10 years thereafter. Yeah, Semien did not re-sign with the Athletics. So what did Oakland do that offseason? They purchased Cole Irvin from Philadelphia. We'll come back to this one later. In the first indication they were shredding payroll, the A's traded slugger Chris Davis and his large salary, along with Jonah Heim, that Jonah Heim, and minor leaguer Dane Acker to the Texas Rangers for Elvis Andrus, Aramis Garcia, and cash. Texas would pay about half of Andrus' salary for the 2021 and 22 seasons. How did this one play out? On the A's side, Elvis Andrus would post close to 2 wins above replacement over the next 2 seasons before being released in August 2022. Garcia would be released in September of 2021. For the Rangers, Acker is a starting pitcher at AA in their system, but Jonah Heim is the standout of this trade. Heim would go on to be an All-Star in 2023, winning AL Gold Glove at catcher, and proved to be a big part of the Rangers' World Series win. This trade was all about money for the A's. They shed Chris Davis's nearly $17 million contract and convinced the Rangers to cover a good portion of Elvis Andrus' contract for the next 2 seasons. However, Texas essentially bought Jonah Heim from the A's while ridding themselves of the underperforming Andrus. This turned into a huge win for the Rangers, as Heim is now viewed as one of the top catchers in the game. The Athletics either didn't know what they had with Heim, or were more focused on shredding salary. Oakland did sign a handful of free agents. Former A's standout Jed Lowry was signed for $1.5 million. Starter and Houston Astros trash can whistleblower Mike Fiers was re-signed. He started 2 games for the A's in 2021 and missed the rest of the season with an elbow injury. Trevor Rosenthal was signed for $11 million to be the replacement for Liam Hendriks. Rosenthal had to have thoracic outlet syndrome surgery, and neither he nor Mike Fiers ever pitched in the majors again. In retrospect, this offseason was an objective disaster. Oakland let Hendriks and Semien walk without getting any prospects or draft picks in return. The front office clearly had their hands tied regarding payroll, but none of their free agent signings had any serious impact on the team in 2021, and over $13 million was sunk into Fiers and Rosenthal. That's a huge hurdle to overcome for a so-called small market team. Oakland is actually the 10th largest market in the United States compared to Las Vegas, which is 40th. Despite the bad offseason and their fair share of injuries, the 2021 Oakland Athletics still had a talented core of players and were able to compete for a playoff spot. Ultimately, they finished 86-76, 6 games out of a spot in the wild card series. Matt Olson broke out, totaling 39 home runs and nearly 6 WAR. Bassitt, Montas, and Manaea made up a respectable top 3 in the rotation. Utility man Tony Kemp had a career year, and Matt Chapman and Sean Murphy won Gold Gloves at their respective positions. The A's completed a respectable draft in 2021, picking 3 players that are currently in their top 10 ranked prospects and 2 players that are contributing in the majors. On July 2nd, Oakland purchased reliever Sam Maul. This proved to be a shrewd move, and we'll mention Maul later on. Close to the trade deadline, the front office decided to go for it and traded young starting pitcher Jesus Luzardo to the Miami Marlins for outfielder Starling Marte. Anytime a front office puts forth an effort to make the playoffs, I'm going to give them some credit. But ultimately, this trade ends up as a net loss for Oakland. Marte was good for Oakland in his brief time there, but Luzardo has become a quality starting pitcher in the 3 years since. After the 2021 season, all bets were off. Would ownership invest in adding to a squad that had some promising players? Or would John Fisher and company go into full rebuild mode? If you're watching this, you know where this is going. Oakland lost some reliable veterans this offseason, including Mark Canha, Jake Diekman, and the recently acquired Starling Marte. Perhaps more important than those losses, the Athletics allow manager Bob Melvin, heralded as one of the best managers in the game, to be hired as the new manager of the San Diego Padres. The teardown of the roster began with the trade of starting pitcher Chris Bassitt at his $8.65 million salary to the New York Mets for Adam Oller and minor leaguer JT Ginn. Oller pitched 94 innings for Oakland in 2022 and 2023 with a 7.09 ERA. Ginn has struggled in the minors and is currently in AA at 25 years old. For a quality starting pitcher at a decent salary, you have to do better, especially if you are the Oakland Athletics. Unless Ginn turns his career around, this trade will have had no positive impact on the major league team. One of the biggest stories post-lockout was the trade of star first baseman Matt Olson to Atlanta for Christian Pache and prospects Ryan Cusick, Shea Langeliers, and Joey Estes. Pache struggled mightily with the A's and was traded before the 2023 season to Philadelphia for a fringe prospect. Cusick has quite not lived up to his first-round pick potential, but still ranks in the top 30 prospects in the A's system at 24. Langeliers is a solid MLB catcher and is having a very good 2024 season as a catcher with defensive abilities and plus power. Estes, now 22, has seen limited MLB action, but is ranked by MLB.com as the A's 11th best prospect and has upside as an impact starting pitcher. Oakland did fine here. For the A's to essentially give up on Pache is a huge disappointment, and Cusick may not make it as a big league starter. But if Oakland gets an above average catcher and starter out of this trade, it just might be acceptable. Before the start of the 2022 season, the A's managed to complete another major transaction. They traded Matt Chapman and his $12.5 million salary for Kirby Snead and minor leaguers Gunnar Hoglund, Zach Logue, and Kevin Smith. Snead was a below-average reliever for the A's in 22 and 23 and was non-tendered after the 23 season. Hoglund is in AA for the A's at 24 years old. Logue struggled for the A's in 2022 and was claimed off waivers by Detroit during that season. Smith combined for 0.1 WAR in 22 and 23 and is now in the Yankees organization. Only Hoglund is in the A's organization just a little over 2 years later, and it seems unlikely he will have an impact at the major league level. For a prominent player like Chapman, this can only be described as a total failure on the behalf of the A's front office. Look away if you're an A's fan. The front office traded away 3 of the remaining top players on the roster for a minimal return. If it wasn't clear before, the next few years for this franchise are going to be rough. Given ownership restrictions and inability to hit on big trades, the A's 2022 season signals the organization is in full rebuild mode. Under first-year manager Mark Kotsay, the team goes 60-102, its worst since 1979. 2022 saw a breakout year for catcher Sean Murphy. Known as a strong defender, he easily led the team in wins above replacement and was 22% better offensively than the average major league hitter. Paul Blackburn represented the A's in the All-Star game, but faded in the second half. Not even a week into the season, Oakland traded starting pitcher Sean Manaea and a fringe relief prospect to San Diego for Adrian Martinez and minor leaguer Eusebio Angeles. Manaea continues to be a solid middle-of-the-rotation starter. Angeles is an unranked prospect in the A's system and is currently in High A at 22. Martinez struggled in the big leagues and is currently in AAA. This was a curious time to trade Sean Manaea. who might have received better offers in the offseason or at the trade deadline. Once again, the A's trade away a significant piece from their roster without, to this point at least, getting any positive impact at the major league level in return. This seems more about shredding payroll, a common theme for the organization. It's hard to evaluate the A's 2022 draft less than 2 years later, but they did acquire 4 of their current top 15 prospects in that draft. Oakland's biggest transaction of the 2022 season came at the trade deadline when they traded starter Frankie Montas and reliever Lou Trevino to the Yankees for J.P. Sears and prospects Ken Waldichuk, Cooper Bowman, and Luis Medina. Sears looks to be a solid starting pitcher in his age 28 season. Waldichuk has not excelled in the big leagues. It remains to be seen if he can be an effective MLB pitcher. Likewise, Medina has yet to have success, but is just getting his 2024 season started after injury. Bowman is currently in AA at 24. Oakland did much better on this trade. They took advantage of the Yankees' desperation and got a solid haul. Sure, there are no obvious standout prospects, but Waldichuk and Medina still have time to become above-average MLB pitchers. Sears almost accounts for the loss of Manai's production. A rare trade win for Oakland as Montas and Trevino combined to pitch only 62 2/3 innings for the Yankees. Chad Pinder is really the only notable free agent Oakland lost this offseason, and we haven't even mentioned him before, so notable might be a stretch. The front office did get a couple of impact players off waivers early in the 2022 offseason. Rooker and Noda would be 2 of the team's biggest contributors in the upcoming season. In mid-December, the Athletics traded their last big piece, catcher Sean Murphy. This was a rare 3-team deal in which the A's sent Murphy to their old pal the Atlanta Braves, as well as middle reliever Yoel Payamps to Milwaukee. Oakland received Kyle Muller, Manny Pena, and prospects Freddie Tarnok and Royber Salinas from the Braves, plus outfield prospect Esteury Ruiz from the Brewers. Additionally, Atlanta traded William Contreras and Justin Yeager to Milwaukee. Muller has been up and down at the major league level and has yet to prove himself. Pena was included mainly for salary reasons and only played 4 games for Oakland. Salinas is at AAA and is currently the 14th best prospect in the A's system. Tarnok battled effectiveness and injury and was claimed off waivers by Philadelphia on June 1st, 2024. Ruiz is a speedy player who has shown some promise in the big leagues but has yet to stick on the MLB roster. This one could change as the fates of the various prospects are revealed, but this deal is a C for me. The A's organization seems to prefer quantity to quality when it comes to prospects, but I'm not sure if that's the way to go. If Muller can be at least a back end of the rotation starter, Salinas proves to be an effective major league pitcher, and Ruiz develops into a starting center fielder, this deal could be deemed acceptable. On January 26th, the A's traded pitcher Cole Irvin, along with prospect Kyle Verbitsky, to the Baltimore Orioles for infielder Daryl Hernandez. After purchasing Cole Irvin from the Phillies, they turned him and a fringe prospect into Hernandez, currently the 4th-ranked prospect in the A's system. With not enough actual major league players on the roster, the Athletics front office signed a handful of replacement-level free agents and made a couple minor trades, most notably parting with Pache, a big piece of the return for Matt Olson, for a fringe relief prospect. The A's traded away the last prominent player from their 2020 playoff team for an iffy return. They signed some outcasts from other MLB rosters pretending to care about the product they put on the field. A couple of creative waiver claims keep this offseason from being an absolute disaster. Ownership is clearly in full tank mode, perhaps hoping to prove that a baseball franchise is no longer viable in Oakland. This is rock bottom. The organization is making little attempt to field a major league team. Oakland finishes with 112 losses, one of the worst teams in recent memory. The A's second round pick from 2021, Zach Geloff, put together an impressive half season in his first taste of the big leagues. JP Sears puts up respectable numbers in 172 innings. Brent Rooker and Ryan Noda really impressed. The two offseason waiver claims put up a combined 4.5 WAR, and Rooker slugged his way to the All-Star game. On the other hand, if you don't have any players on your roster accumulating more than 3 wins above replacement, that's not a good look. The front office was able to make a couple nice, if not minor, moves during the season. They purchased Lucas Erceg, an infielder turned reliever from Milwaukee, and traded reliever Sam Maul, who they acquired for cash in 2021, to Cincinnati for former 5th-round pick Joe Boyle. Erceg has shown some promise in the bullpen in 2024, and Boyle, while struggling with control issues, is currently in the A's rotation and has the raw stuff to contribute at the major league level. In August, Ramon Laureano was claimed off waivers by the Cleveland Guardians, an unceremonious end to Laureano's tenure with Oakland, who once looked to be an impact center fielder. With no big pieces left to trade and hardly any money to spend, if you believe ownership, Oakland seemed to do as well as they could. Some interesting waiver claims and a couple veteran signings that could potentially bring back prospects at the trade deadline. The organization's controversial ballpark fiasco and looming move to Las Vegas has taken its toll on the major league roster. Ownership's unwillingness or inability to spend has led to a major league roster largely made up of prospects and waiver claims. Despite going into full tank mode following the 2021 season, Oakland's farm system is only ranked 25th by MLB.com. The whole point of losing on purpose is to get prospects. The 24 team has looked more competitive than the dismal 23 Athletics, with genuine bright spots on the roster. Mason Miller has been one of the best relievers in baseball and looks to be either a player to build around or to perhaps trade for a haul of prospects. Waiver claims such as Rooker, Toro, and Andujar are having positive impacts on the MLB club, with Rooker in particular being a fantastic story. The A's are hoping their prospects at the major league level and high minors are able to take the next step in their development, although they only have one top 100 prospect, according to MLB.com. But it's hard to ignore the cloud over the franchise that is the abandonment of the city of Oakland, the lack of accountability from ownership, and the huge question mark of playing home games in a minor league ballpark for the next 3 seasons. Can the major league team continue to progress with minimal ballpark revenues? Will ownership actually invest in the major league product and keep its word to build a competitive team for its relocation to Las Vegas? Don't hold your breath.